the trickle down blues.
Yeah.
Oh yes, as Daddy Mac goes shuffling out of the KBBF studio here with those trickle-down blues. You know, those trickle-down blues have been spreading all over the place, all over Kingdom Come, as Big Daddy Mac might say. We are experiencing one of the most tremendous Great Depressions of American history, and one of the symptoms of it. And you know, much of what we see and experience in this particular recession, depression that we're going through, it's turning out there are people coming forward right and left and center that are saying, you know what, there's a lot of illegality happening that's behind this. There's a lot of things that were done that in shadow banking, in the shadow world of banking, in the shadow world of backroom deals that were not legal. And they're starting to come home to roost in very destructive ways. And one of those, my guest here in the studio, now we're going to be joined by others, but my guest here in the studio is C.J. Holmes, who is a real estate broker and a real estate investor who has, well, first of all, I want to welcome you here to Shiftshapers Pole Reversal Radio here on KBBF FM.
Thank you very much for having us here.
And what you're listening to is KBBF FM 89.1 out of Calistoga, but also serving Sonoma, Napa, Mendocino, Lake, Contra Costa, Marin counties. So we have a pretty wide listenership out there, we know. And out there in those counties that we reach, there are people who are, I'm sure when you're listening to this, you are going to say, oh man, that's me. I'm in that situation. This is that kind of show. So listen up. There's some information here. This show is a special edition of Shiftshapers, and it is devoted entirely to the foreclosure menace. Now we're not talking about eviction, where if you're renting and you haven't paid your rent or whatever reason you get evicted. This is foreclosure. If you happen to own a home and you have a note on that home that you're paying, foreclosure means that the bank comes in, you haven't been able to keep up the payment. It's happened to a lot of people right now. Underemployment. We got home values way down below what people are financed for. Foreclosure means the bank comes in and takes it away. So, C.J. Holmes, can you tell us a little bit more about this? Because it isn't just simply people didn't pay their bill. There's more to this than meets the eye.
There is so much more to it. It is complicated, but it's really simple. They're stealing our homes from us. That is the bottom line. They have structured a situation in which they created toxic loans. They lied to us about them. They lied to the investors that bought them. They're continuing to lie. They are fraudulently foreclosing. They are ruining the tax records in the county recorder's office. They have escaped paying the taxes due on a transfer. That's with the MERS. And it has started at the very top. So when people say, oh, it's just those bad buyers, they should never have they were greedy, they should never have signed these loan docs, they should never have done this, that, or the other, and they put all the blame on the people, that is the exact wrong place.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing various news commentators saying when this first started, and probably still now are saying, and trying to trot out this particular theory, which is that, oh, it's equal opportunity. The banks and the mortgage companies had to sell loans to a certain number of minority people just to keep their proper kind of numbers, and so they were forced into selling these home loans and these refinances to people who really didn't have the income and really didn't understand that when they, over time, this was going to be a very difficult mortgage to pay.
Let me tell you what they were told.
Yeah.
The buyers were solicited, actively solicited, to buy with these loans. These were the only loans offered to them, and it wasn't just minorities, it was everybody. They did the subprime, neg-am, negative amortization, a whole slew of fraudulent type lending, where for $1,500 a month, they would loan you $600,000.
Wow.
Now, that's insane, and they turned right around and sold those mortgages in their funds, if you will. They're called collateralized debt obligations. They securitized them Goldman Sachs, the
Okay,
big banks
so-
did that on Wall Street.
Okay, so now, there's a lot of people that don't know
I
what you're
know,
talking about.
I
So
know.
we're gonna back up a little bit here.
Exactly.
Okay, so, we're gonna follow the course. We got 2 hours here, by the way, folks. This is a special 2-hour edition of Shiftshapers. So we're gonna take a deep breath and take our time. Because what we're gonna do is start with what is a subprime loan, and then what happened to that document after it got signed. I understand subprime means that it's below the interest rate, the going interest rate, but
No,
what is a
no.
subprime loan?
No, a subprime means that the credit score of the borrower was below prime.
Oh,
So they hit these people with higher interest rates. They
Mm.
typically did what is called an 80-20, an 80% first mortgage plus a 20% second. So a lot of the subprime borrowers got into property with zero money down. It was 100% financing, and they were told, don't worry, prices are going up, and in a year, we'll refinance you out of these loans. And so they believed them.
yeah, and the economic situation in which this was happening was, if I understand it correctly, is that there was a lot of money available for lending. I mean, there was, China had a lot of money, the US had a lot of money. It was just at a time when there was money available, and the Fed had decreased interest rates hugely, and so it became a market where it was easier to sell real estate. I'm talking about the early 2000s.
Yes, that's part of it. You know, I suggest, if you have a computer available and you have access to that while you're listening, I would encourage you to get on my website, occupy-our-homes.info. occupy-our-homes.info. Because I've crammed an awful lot of the history, how this worked, and current articles, so that you can follow along as we discuss this. The fact is, it's even worse than what you just said. Yes, they sold these in the reason there was so much money is because once a borrower signed that loan document, then the bank swept that document up, plus, you know, thousands of others, and they bundled them on Wall Street into securities. They sold them on Wall Street.
They made a package out of it.
They made a package, and then the terms we often use is slice and dice, and this is what that means. They have hundreds of these pools, and we did a short sale for one client. His loan, his $500,000 interest-only loan, had been sliced into 7 different pools.
Oh.
So when we tried to negotiate that, the negotiator from the bank who was servicing that note and trying to get the short sale through and work with us, had to get 7 different investor representatives to sign off. It was a nightmare. It took 14 months. We actually got that one done, but when you start looking at all the short sales and how many fail, it's really fortunate to get as many as 60% actually closed.
So wait a minute, so I thought it was easy, once a property, isn't this a property that got foreclosed, isn't that what a short sale is?
No, a short sale is a sale of the property for less than what is owed.
Right.
That's why it's called short. Not that the process is short. The
Right.
process is very long.
And so you're selling short because the market for real estate has plummeted
Exactly.
since the time that those loans were originated.
Exactly, and the reason it's plummeted, and I want to make this painfully clear, and that is the reason we have economic crisis is because everybody in construction, all the developers, all the builders, all the contractors lost their jobs and have gone bankrupt. The biggest developers, the biggest builder and contractors in this county, in Sonoma County, are in bankruptcy court. Do you think it was because they had subprime loans? Not at all. It's because the market has plummeted. With all of these foreclosures, the banks dump the value on the market. Now, this is what happens.
Okay, I don't get the part about the banks dump the value on the market.
Okay.
That's out in Wall Street somewhere, right? So,
When the bank forecloses, they will take a house back, they will give it to an asset manager at some point in time. They may hold that asset for a year. It may sit empty
Okay.
for a year. And then they will finally list it on the market. And then when they sell it, they will sell it to make sure they get a buyer, they teaser price it. So they sell it for lower than what the value is in the surrounding comparable homes. And every time that home closes, there's a new price point which is lower than the neighborhood. So everybody's homes lose value.
Yeah, and appraisers go with what the recent comparable, the sale amounts for recent comparable homes
Absolutely.
is what determines what you're gonna get appraised for.
Exactly. I call it mark to market. The appraiser comes out, the only houses they can use are those that have sold. The vast majority now are foreclosures or short sales, which have closed below a true market price, and sometimes these homes are hammered.
Yeah.
So the point is, then everybody loses their equity.
So a short sale is somebody selling out, they're selling the home to get out from under the mortgage, they're taking a huge loss. Sometimes a very huge loss, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
It's sold for less than what is owed, that is correct. Many of our homes down in Sonoma County are 200-300 below what they had borrowed. The fact is, if you sell short, then the owner has no lender recourse. The lenders can't come back after them and say, pay me the difference.
And most of the work that you've been doing, CJ Homes, I'm talking to CJ Homes, who's a real estate broker and investor, operating, it's Petaluma that you mainly operate through?
Santa Rosa.
Santa Rosa, okay.
Santa Rosa.
And so mainly active in Sonoma County, and
Sonoma, Marin, Solano,
very good.
Contra Costa, Lake, Mendocino.
That's right, and that is the coverage area of KBBF, so great, because we can have a big picture conversation. So listen folks, this is not just about Sonoma County. However, a lot of the figures that I have reviewed and looked at on the website that CJ Homes gave, which is occupy-our-homes.info, have figures that are from Sonoma County, and they are striking. It's
It's beyond words. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, sometimes we lose the words.
we don't realize how big this is.
Oh, let me tell you, I do. And if you go to the page on my website called Stealing Our Homes, you will discover that at the very bottom, I'm going on the top list is the most current date. So if you scroll to the bottom of the list, you're gonna discover that the first person that actually did something about this was in June 2009, and it was me. And I put a little video together, and I called it Foreclosure Rescue Plan. And then you'll see in 2010, some mortgage guys talked about the sweetheart deal that the government was giving Goldman Sachs. Then you start looking, we sort of segue forward into this November and December. But at the very top of that list is November 4, an article written about the remix have failed. And what the REMIC is a real estate mortgage investment pool that is used in the shadow banking, and that is why we have such a problem.
Okay, so I'm going to go back a couple of steps here. The video that you're referring to, CJ, is about 9 minutes long. You're very good at being concise in explaining, really, it explains how the real estate market works and how it went haywire, and what's happening with from what CJ has found and from her studies and research and actual experience, what is happening with and contributing to and causing this. It's really, I refer to it as a foreclosure menace, because a menace is the kind of thing that it's maybe happening or kind of skulking around the neighborhood, but eventually it could be coming after you.
Here's the real scary upshot. I just counted yesterday the number of foreclosures in Sonoma County in the next 3.5 months, the number of homes. The number of homes being foreclosed in the next 3.5 months is 1,394 in this county. If you're in Contra Costa, it's 4,417. If you're in Lake, it's another 265 homes. And the kicker is you have to connect to how many these are compared to how many you sell each month, because the markets are different. Marin is a very small market, for example. Sonoma is much larger. It's about 10 times the size of Mendocino. But when you look at how many we sell in this market in Sonoma County last year, we sold 380 homes a month on average. That goes up and down, but if you took all the sales and divide by 12, you got 380. They're foreclosing, on the average, 398. They're foreclosing more homes than we can sell. And this is true for the 11 Bay Area counties I count. They're foreclosing 18,833 in the next 3.5 months. That's 5,381 per month. And these 11 counties only sold last year 4,679 a month. So 700 more homes a month we're losing to foreclosure. We can't keep this up. It will ruin the values, and they're already ruined.
And that is one of the things that happens is that, and just to make this really, really clear, when a foreclosed home, and many people have seen the ads, many people have seen the come-ons for, hey, foreclosure bargains, foreclosed homes, you know, on the auction block, come get them. What's happening is that when a home is foreclosed, it gets resold generally at the market price. And that means that there is this whole larger chunk of homes, this larger supply of homes going out into the market that is half the value of the one that you have.
That's right.
And that is going to be very surely under any kind of rules of market or any rules of economics you look at, that is going to drive down values big time. And
Exactly.
That's part of what's happening. We see the libraries closing, we see fire departments closing, that's part of it. I mean.
Exactly.
Okay.
As the home values fall in California, our property tax revenues are based on price. So our property tax revenues just bite the bullet. They just fall and fall and fall and fall. Listen, in Hidden Valley Lake, in Lake County, last year, one totally buildable lot sold for $1. Now, to me, that's bottom.
That is.
So don't tell me we've got to hit bottom. But the fact is, everything else is going to continue to slump down in price unless we stop foreclosures.
I'm talking with CJ Holmes, who's a real estate broker and investor. In our second hour, the 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock hour, we will be joined by Tiffany Renee, who's Vice Mayor of Petaluma, to talk about the impact that this is having not only in Sonoma County, but also in Petaluma, and she can give us a broader picture too. You're listening to Shiftshapers and KBBF, FM 89.1.
Chase and several other large banks.
Holy cow, wait a minute. So this MERS, this mortgage electronic referral system? Recording system is actually the product of a profit-making corporation. And
Absolutely.
and it was put in to replace or sidestep the county recording process, which is how it's always been done.
Exactly.
Until now. Until
Exactly.
maybe a few years ago.
And this is why that article on the remix have failed, which is completely like esoteric to us. But it's very clear, and it actually shows you with these foreclosure documents how they are illegal, how they were not signed correctly, how these banks, by doing this, have lied to us, the property owners and borrowers, and the investors of these collateralized debt obligations, and the shadow banking system. And the problem is, they've got a huge mess on their hands and they don't know how to solve it.
So what is remix? The remix has failed. So when you refer to remix, what's a remix?
They're mortgage investment companies. They are investment pools that were used to park funds. I like to think of it as commercial paper. And if you have a Schwab account and you're not invested in stocks or bonds, you have some cash, they will put that into an overnight sweep account, they call it. And these amounts are literally as liquid as cash. And what they've actually done, because there are so many trillions of dollars, you know, hundreds of billions, sovereign wealth companies, big funds, they want the security of collateral, but they want the liquidity of cash. And so the shadow banking system said, I got an idea.
Yes.
Let's just use these mortgages.
Yes.
And so they sweep them in. And so to sweep them in and out and to change the ownership all the time, they don't sign them. So there is no assignment. Now that's totally illegal.
That means there's no paper trail.
Well, it's
Well, paper trail is
in
full of
MERS.
unsigned things.
It's in MERS, and it's going back and forth and back and forth. And so this is why when they foreclose, they actually assign them after the trusts were closed which is illegal. So the fact
Oh.
is, nobody really wants to talk about this, and it's pretty complicated, so read the articles. But the issue is.
So during the process of all of this selling and reselling of your mortgage, my mortgage, the neighbor's mortgage, into pieces,
Yep, they pull.
among 5, 6, 7, that is just automatically done by computers and nobody really knows. By the time it finally lands and there's a foreclosure, the decision is that someone's gonna get foreclosed, that property's gonna be taken in. Then that is, they go ahead and complete the
Yep.
record, they go through and find whatever the loose ends are and then fix them up electronically.
And listen, the reason the banks have agreed to settle, and thank goodness Attorney General Harris, our Attorney
Yeah,
General.
this is
California,
Attorney General
backed up.
Kamala Harris of California. She was elected, I think, in 2008. Yeah, she was elected at the same time that Obama was. And it was, definitely progressive voters got her in.
So she has backed out of any settlement with the banks, thank goodness. And I'm pushing, I want you to help me push her and the governor and the legislature to pass a law, whatever it takes to stop foreclosures. Insist on a moratorium on foreclosures in California while we work these solutions out.
And California is a very good place to start. Now, what you're referring to here is, and how Kamala Harris, the Attorney General of California, gets involved in this, is that, if I understand it correctly, these Wall Street companies,
Barons.
yes, they're looking to have a number of things happen that will, first of all, give them immunity from fraud.
Right.
And they have some other plans, but in order to do it, they need to get the approval of, on a state-by-state basis of
Well-
the attorneys general, and if they don't get it, that's gonna get in the way of them being able to have it the way they want it. Can you explain that just a little bit?
Well, Obama has tried to make a settlement and pushed the attorneys general
Try
from
to
50
try to
states.
solve all the foreclosure things, or?
They wanna, I swear, they wanna sweep it under the carpet. They do not want this out, they don't know how to solve it. And basically Obama has already admitted that he's going to try soon a pilot program. And the plan is to sell hundreds of thousands of Fannie and Freddie foreclosures to the hedge funds. These are the billionaires.
Yeah.
These are the very ultra wealthy of the planet.
And the problem they're trying to solve is that there were fraudulent and illegal transactions
Exactly.
behind all of it.
Exactly.
That's really the problem they want to solve.
And in the process, they've made it harder and harder and harder to get a loan. So they
Interesting.
One of the rules, for example, is that if you lose a home to short sale or foreclosure, you, the borrower, the owner, now out on the street or renting, cannot get another loan to buy a home for 3 years. So they have locked out, that rule has locked out of every market in this country 3 years of foreclosures. So if you had a county that had just a few foreclosures, it's not a big thing. If you have a county like Solano, that has had 79% of the listings on the market are now distressed. 25% are bank-owned foreclosures and 50% are short. So they have locked out over 12,000 families in Solano County in the last 3 years alone, and they can't get a loan to buy. So rents are climbing because they have to live somewhere.
You can't even buy your own home back on a short sale.
Oh, no. The only people, anybody on the planet can buy your home on a short sale except you, your family, or a terrorist. They check everybody now on the terrorist watch list. So it's outrageous, and that's why one of my solutions is, well, sell it to the owner short. If you need to rewrite the note with a quote sale, you can't modify it, right? Then sell it short, and the difference.
That would be a solution, wouldn't it?
Well,
To actually set it up so that the owner
Absolutely.
of the home, who, by the way, has a history of living there, that has a history of their family living there, they know that home. They've done improvements on that home. They picked out all the paint, all the carpets. They've done everything. They did the special, and there was a thing in the Press Democrat about it, where they'd done a special room for their aging relative.
Absolutely.
So that, and they had done all of this special tiling in the kitchen, and they have stories to tell about the whole process. And that's being taken away from them.
Exactly.
Taken away.
And there are no solutions.
And they
The
don't
banks
even
won't
have
solve
the
it.
option of rebuying it at the new, correct interest rates or the new correct value, corrected market value
Exactly.
of the home. Not an option.
Exactly. Listen,
Interesting.
people are in my office and they are crying or they are yelling over the phone, not at me. But the fact of the matter is, when their home sells short, it sells for a price they would have paid to
Yes.
keep it. But no,
Yes.
we had to go through the foreclosure process or the short sale process and all the extra expenses, and they would not modify that person's loan to that amount.
It sounds like punishment.
Oh, it's huge tit for tat.
And there's something more to this, isn't there? There's a benefit to the foreclosures. There's a benefit to banks, there's a benefit to possibly even to Wall Street coming down the pike in what you've been finding out.
One of the biggest burns is to watch the bankers, the banksters, get bonuses off our money from the government and just continue to push people out of their homes, and then the government against us selling our foreclosures to the hedge funds so they can be our landlords and manipulate the market however they want and net the appreciation gain. Look, every investor looks at a property like, what's it gonna do in the future? And so now, truly, for example, take Solano County. The houses there are down to $80,000 for purchase price.
Really?
They'll rent for $1,200-1,300 a month, but when you insure them, you have to insure them for $180,000 because that's the cost to replace. So it's obvious that the prices are depressed
the prices are depressed, yeah.
$100,000. So eventually, let's say all the foreclosures stop tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, the market would fairly quickly balance because you wouldn't be having these foreclosures and short sales on the market.
So the short sales and foreclosures are actually putting homes on the market that are being offered for less than it would take to build one. I mean,
Well, this is why you gotta understand that the home crisis, this foreclosure crisis and this debacle, this shell game foisted on us by these fraudsters has ruined our economy because every contractor, every builder, every developer is bankrupt. So when you take all construction, virtually all of it, out of our economy, well, what do you get? Unemployment.
You do. You definitely get unemployment. It starts there in the
Yeah,
construction
and I have been,
zones.
I'll yell at TV, thankfully I can now actually have a radio show to say, listen, if you fix the home market, you'll fix our economy. Our hearts are where our homes are, and they've broken our hearts. They're taking our homes, they're stealing them from us. They don't offer any other solution than get out. And the people that they're putting on the street now are old people and disabled people and middle-class people. It's outrageous, and it's gotta stop.
It's not only outrageous and got to stop, as you're saying. What I would also point out from what you're saying, it's about to increase and accelerate.
Yes, oh yes. Look on my little list of, stealing our homes. They expect to do 25% more foreclosures, and people will say, you've heard them, talking heads, well, let's just foreclose on them and get it over with. And the fact is, the more they foreclose, the more homes fall into foreclosure, and the more they'll foreclose, it will not stop until they foreclose every loan. That's the end result.
Yeah.
Right now, 40% of the loans in our country are in trouble. This country has 50 million loans,
Yeah.
and 20 million of them have a problem. 6 million are in the pipeline.
Yeah.
Defaults, going to foreclosure. 11
10%
million,
are a sure thing.
11 million are underwater.
Yeah.
I've done the numbers. In the 11 counties in the Bay Area, we have 342,944 loans right now that are underwater. That's 18% of the property in these 11 counties. That is over 6 years worth of sales, because these 11 counties only sell about 55,000 homes a year.
And again, to go back to some things the points that you've been making here, that it makes it more difficult for homes to be sold because the people who've been foreclosed, the people who have made short sales, they're out of the market for at least 3 years,
Exactly.
no matter what their credit is.
Exactly. Who's going to buy it? Is somebody actually going to come from China and live there? No. And so the prices fall, and they say, where are the buyers? Some agent emailed me from Atlanta. She says, we don't have any buyers. All we've got out here are renters. Well, duh. They've foreclosed everybody. And so the fact of the matter is not every tenant can buy. And a couple of years ago, we ran through those tenants. And so now you have basically, my clients are first-time home buyers struggling to go, and they're going, how does this work? Or you've got investors, you know, and they want it cheap. And, and so everybody in the middle, all of us homeowners and property owners are just like, wait a minute, I can't. And the upper end is really hurting. It's going to continue to slide and slide and slide because in the in a normal market, a home seller has some equity,
Right.
and can buy, and typically buys up. Well, they don't have, there aren't any
Equity
of those
is
people.
lost. Yeah.
There's no equity, and so they're just out.
As the home values get driven down, the equity
Yeah.
goes away with it.
Absolutely.
Right.
I'm telling you, now these are conventional borrowers. They put 100,000 down. They owe 500,000. The house is worth $3 million. They paid $6 million in 2009, 2 years ago. Now the trouble is that was a conventional loan, and that's now underwater that much. This is a disaster.
Yeah,
We have to
yeah.
stop this.
And that was not even a subprime. That
No,
was not even
no.
a loan to somebody with bad credit.
No.
It was a loan, it
It was
was
a
a conventional loan.
prime loan, and it took all that person's savings. So now these people, and trust me, there's a ton of them, they're saying, hey, wait a minute, my savings is gone too,
Yeah,
and I'm upside down. So the only way I can now sell is short, and
Yeah.
then I'm gonna be out.
right. And there is a group that will be in, and
Yeah.
you've been referring to them, and it looks like it's going to be, according to some of the information on your website, it's going to be Wall Street, and the website is
Occupy-our-homes.info.
and there's a place where they have instructions on how to contact you with questions.
Yes, you can email me, occupy@cjhomes.com.
And you can also email us at shiftshapers@gmail.com. Feel free to email our Shiftshapers team, who are actively busy here in the studio right now, with any questions you may have, and I will be delighted to forward any of that to CJ or to whoever is going to be the appropriate person to answer the question. Coming up here in the next hour, we will be joined, and I want to thank you, CJ Holmes, for coming in
Thank
and
you.
joining us. It's and I know that you are on a mission to let people know what is going on, but not only let people know, but give people some instructions and say, it's just like almost like an Animal House, you know? Who's with me? You know? and I just love that you've got that who's with me, come on, kind of attitude, and that's going to be showing up here in the next hour. We'll be joined by Tiffany Renee, who is the Vice Mayor of Petaluma, with things to say about what's happening at the national level, and we will be talking about some of the things that are being done in Petaluma as an example of what could be done in many communities nationwide. You're listening to Shiftshapers, Pole Reversal Radio. I'm your host, Daniel Curbine. You're listening to this on KBBF FM 89.1 out of Calistoga, serving Sonoma County, Marin, Lake, Mendocino, Napa, Contra Costa, you name it, we're serving it. And I'm sure there are people out there going, whoa, what am I going to do? Well, we are going to have some ideas on that, and it's mostly going to be everybody getting together and helping each other to get that word to the people that we have to get that word to, and start twisting some arms up there in those marble buildings. And we will be putting some, and one more, sure, would you like to?
Let me just do some quick summary if that's okay. Their plans are 3 things. They want to settle and get immunity, they want to keep foreclosing, and they want to steal our homes. They want them themselves because the future appreciation is enormous. If you think what they've already gotten out of us is a lot, you wait for the future. They're stealing our future appreciation.
It's hard to believe that it's an honest situation when one of the first things that they want in negotiation is immunity from prosecution.
Exactly.
And you can share this interview. We will be uploading this on our blog, on our podcast. It is Blog Talk Radio, blogtalkradio.com/Shiftshapers. Okay, that's blogtalkradio.com. Look for Shiftshapers when you get there. and you'll be able to find this podcast by the middle of this week. This will be uploaded to our podcast, so you can listen into this some more. And we're delighted to have our guests here in the studio.
There's 3 things we can do to stop. We have stop action, we have go action, and some individual actions. We need to stop the bank settlements, we need to stop foreclosures, and we need to stop Obama from selling the foreclosures to the hedge funds. For go, we need to all get better connected. We need to connect with our legislators and our government, particularly at the state level, and insist that they stop foreclosures for us. We need to be in on the negotiations with the banks. We need to force them to negotiate and settle our loans the way, and modify the loans the way we want them. There's some individual things you can do. On my home page, there's both a flyer in English and Spanish. I ask you, print it and give it to a friend, a neighbor, somebody. Get the word out. If you understand Twitter, you can follow me at Occupy Homes, OCCUPYHOLMES, and I try to tweet what's happening and coming. And then hound the Attorney General to say no to foreclosures and to settlement, don't settle with the banks, stop our foreclosures, and hound Obama to just stop his pilot program. There are better ways. We need to insist that Fannie and Freddie work on a loan process that anybody that's had a foreclosure can buy one of these foreclosures. Let's us keep them. Sell them to us. Don't sell them to the hedge funds.
And it is really big. In Sonoma County from 2008 to 2012, there have been over 20,000 foreclosures, and the value lost of home values has been over $8.4 billion. Our local governments have lost more than $200 million in tax revenues due to the housing crisis. 1 in 5 U.S. foreclosures is in California. From 2008 to 2012, nearly 2 million homeowners in California have lost their homes to foreclosure, with a home value loss statewide of over $630 billion. Local governments have lost more than $17 billion in tax revenues nationwide. It's big.
And in the state, in the next 3.5 months, there will be 112,541 home foreclosures. That's over 32,000 a month.
Come back for the next hour, we're going to talk about what to do about this. Oh yes. Well, you know, if the foreclosure menace does not give you the blues, what will? That was Jimi Hendrix with Red House. There's a red house over yonder, but well, you know what? My baby don't live there no more. So, you know, we're trying to have some music breaks here to distract the mind and give you a chance to digest some of the information that we're giving here, and there is a lot of it. You know, of course, it's the kind of thing that has to do with documents and real estate, and you know, how much did I pay for it and what's it worth now. It can get complicated. There is, well, let's just get down to who's here. I'm joined here on Shiftshapers Pole Reversal Radio by C.J. Holmes, who is a real estate broker and investor in Sonoma County, but also serves clients in various other counties. She's here in her role with, really with Occupy, and also talking about the website occupy-our-homes, HOMES.info, to really disseminate information about the foreclosure crisis and where this thing is going and where it came from. So we spent the 4 to 5 p.m. hour talking about that. And what really is, what is the mechanics and the working of this that has become so huge and has become such a cancer, really, to our economy nationwide. So I'm also joined here by Tiffany Renee, who is Vice Mayor of Petaluma and has served actually on the City Council for 3 years and was the first Latina to be elected to the Petaluma City Council.
Thank you
Welcome.
for having me.
Oh, delighted to have you here. And one of the things, too, that I wanted to Of course, you have been at a presentation where you and CJ were in front of the same audience and you were speaking. I was there last Tuesday at one of those. And what I believe that you can bring to this discussion, Tiffany Renee, is how this is affecting communities, how this is affecting a city like Petaluma and the services you're able to provide, and what is it doing to families?
Absolutely. You know, over the last few years, we've seen such a great challenge to our revenues, city revenues, as we've hit this foreclosure crisis and have had a number of economic challenges with our budget. And you know, it's sort of the fire hose experience of trying to deal with those budget challenges, and we haven't been able to really focus on how to stop the crisis. And having met CJ and been to a number of events, we actually met at a home in Petaluma, a woman that's being foreclosed upon, who's been trying to get a loan modification, Wendy Booth. Her story was actually featured in a New York Times blog in, I think, December. You know, these challenges that we're facing in the community are great, and as long as this crisis continues to happen, it's going to make the jobs of local government and being able to provide those services more and more difficult. And so over the last several months, I have continued to hear the challenges that people are facing in their neighborhoods, and I'm just astonished that it continues to happen. And you know, as CJ has said, you know, we had less foreclosures last year than we're going to have this year, and so these challenges are just going to get greater.
Yeah, I really heard the part where you said that people are thinking, why doesn't this stop? Why does it just keep going on like this? And of course, we spent part of the last hour, CJ and I, talking about some of the mechanics of the interests involved and how this thing all got started and got out of hand, so that it does become something where it's where there are a lot of foreclosures. I do want to, just for the Sonoma County size. Now, people are listening to KBBF from Sonoma, Napa, Contra Costa, Lake, Mendocino. There are a number of counties, Marin, and so we aren't just talking to Sonoma County with this for sure. But in Sonoma County from 2008 to 2012, there have been over 20,000 foreclosures with a home value loss of over, that's just to the value of the home. That's what's been diminished in home values of over $8.4 billion. That's one county out of this North Bay area. And the cost of local government has lost more than $200 million in tax revenues out of this.
In Petaluma, last year, we lost $1.2 million to property tax losses.
1.2 million.
And that's just local Petaluma revenues that go towards our services, police, fire, roads, public safety, our water systems, and as these declines continue to happen, it continues to hit Petaluma's bottom line, and I'm sure the rest of the county as well. The county's facing huge losses, and each of the cities are facing huge losses. And what we're seeing is the neighborhoods that are being directly affected. I've had homeowners who have seen their neighbors' houses be foreclosed upon, be evicted, and you know, people who bought maybe 7, 8, 10 years ago saw their home values drop quite considerably in the last few years, and then as the foreclosures get closer to them, they're seeing up to half of their home value at this point. And at that point, they start to wonder, is it worth it for me to stay here, or should I walk away?
And that is, there's a name for that, which I heard you mention.
Strategic defaults.
Strategic defaults.
So people are strategically looking at the ability to, in some cases, people are stopping paying their mortgages, and then before they have been foreclosed on and evicted, they walk away. In the interim, I'm hearing some people are saving their mortgage payments for another down payment. So they try to purchase a home before they're actually evicted.
Okay, because One of the things that CJ had revealed in the previous hour is that when someone is foreclosed and there is a foreclosure action that's completed, they are out of the market for real estate for 3 years.
For 3 years.
You cannot purchase, you're just barred from it,
Yeah.
We're barred from getting a bank loan.
from getting bank loans.
So
not
a
to
lot
purchase.
of cash, people will save up cash for 25–30% down and get investor money and buy another home.
Mhm.
Hard money,
Hard money.
very interesting.
And so there's the strategic default issue out there, but there's also many vacant homes that are out there as well.
Right,
And
that
those
would be a
vacant
result,
homes.
wouldn't it?
And I'm on the Association of Bay Area Governments Regional Planning Committee. And we've been discussing the One Bay Area Plan process, which is a
Okay.
sustainable community strategy.
We had a meeting of One Bay Area here at KBBF.
Oh,
years
great,
ago,
so
yes.
your audience is probably familiar with that. One of the issues that came up recently at a meeting was the issue of the vacancies, and that in the 9 Bay Area counties of ABAG, there's about 100,000 homes that will remain vacant. And so as we're trying to look at being able to grow our communities, look at new development, especially around the SMART train for the North Bay,
Yeah.
those vacancies are really going to impact the market and whether we can move forward on those things. So it continues to be a great challenge, and when those vacancies exist in the neighborhood, they are also bringing those property values down. If the
Oh, it would have to.
the lands look bad, they go unkempt, those sorts of things. It can really impact a neighborhood, and other communities such as Stockton and Elk Grove have seen much more vacancies than we have. But the concern is that as people may consider strategic defaults, we could end up seeing those kinds of vacancies in the future as well. And you're looking at what I call the death spiral or neighborhood collapse. And there's other factors, what I consider environmental factors for a neighborhood that can impact that too. And Petaluma has been sort of trying to dodge that bullet, and one of those is the Dutra. And in that process
that's interesting.
of
That's
trying.
an issue about an asphalt processing plant that has been, there have been some issues about whether that was really the right place to be
The
putting
location.
that kind of an operation.
Yeah, it's outside of city limits, so we don't have control over it, but, it will impact neighborhoods, and people who live around this plant proposed location, have come to the council and said that if it comes, they will walk. And some are even considering walking before that, and so it really puts these neighborhoods at risk.
So what they're saying is that this would put so much of a negative impact. I mean, you can't make asphalt without really dirty smoke coming out. And I mean, there are arguments in favor and against, but I could picture not wanting to live next door to an asphalt plant.
Exactly. It's whether the concerns are valid, which I've looked at the evidence, and there are definitely some concerns there around air quality issues, the impact to our wetlands, that sort of thing. Regardless of that, it's the homeowner and whether or not they have the gumption to stay and stay in their homes and continue to make those mortgage payments. And
Are they concerned that it would affect the value of their homes too?
absolutely.
Because it would be less attractive then?
It will impact the values of their homes to have that plant there, certainly. Whether the environmental concerns are valid or not, just it being there is going to impact the values of their homes. So, it's really about, I've been working with people who come to me with these concerns, and we're trying to recover economically, and the more people walk away from their homes, the more that spiral effect is going to have on the rest of their neighbors, and so it's really about trying to hang on to those neighborhoods, and hope that people can stay and will continue to find the location that Petaluma has to offer, at least one that will keep people in their homes. But
and it looks like a major shift could be in the future around if you've got mostly foreclosed property going into the market, and the majority of it now, and you can give me some figures about that if that's correct. You have all these foreclosed properties going to the market. You have people who can't, who are barred from getting lending from banks. It looks as though you could have a major shift where people or entities from outside of the community end up owning the property.
Correct. Yeah, and as you've heard CJ talking about, you know, these other potential homes being sold to investors, and basically,
Yeah.
it almost sounds like serfdom in a lot of ways. So there's a real concern out there about that, and the key is getting these foreclosures to stop.
Yeah,
And
so is there some effort that Petaluma has been put into place
well,
toward that?
we at Occupy Petaluma and CJ and others have been looking at a way to create a foreclosure prevention zone. We're looking at ways that we can work with community groups and legislators, city councils, county government, to work with the banks to stop the foreclosures at the local level. We've been successful. We've had some contacts with some banks and have been able to assist people who are in the foreclosure situation and are facing evictions even, and have had a couple of successes. So, you know, if there are banks out there that are willing to work with us, you know, we want to be able to stop these foreclosures from happening. But banks have to be willing to work with us, and being able to create that political will, and getting communities together to create some zones, some foreclosure prevention zones, I think, you know, is key to really, from the grassroots, saying, you know, enough's enough, and we've got to stop this. But there are things that have to happen at the national level as well.
So foreclosure prevention zones, we're going to get into that some more in just a moment, but I wanted to be sure and let people know that they can send us an email on Shiftshapers, Polar Reversal Radio. We have an email that's Shiftshapers, I'm so excited. I've got this real high-powered guest here. Shiftshapers@gmail.com. And if this program is going to be uploaded to our podcast, which is on blogtalkradio.com/Shiftshapers, just get to blogtalk.com. Whatever way you need to get there, Google whatever if you want to. It's your choice. It's available. And when you're there, you can look for Shiftshapers when you get there. And that's where you will find our uploaded podcasts. And this is going to be a fun one to put up there. And also, we're expecting quite a bit of interest in this. Now, there's also a website that is managed by CJ Holmes, who is our other guest. She hasn't spoken very much in this hour yet, but I think she's about to. Who manages the website occupy-our-homes, HOMES.info. And I want to just, bring CJ into this conversation because the two of you have been talking about this foreclosure prevention zone. And one of the things I'm curious about is in the successes that you've had, what kind of approach did you take? Did you show up with pitchforks and torches, or did you show up with the more of a soft hammer approach to these entities that are doing the foreclosures? What kind of an approach is taken? Or do you not care to discuss it?
In one situation, we're still working on the process, but the exposure of it has really helped. In another situation, some people made some phone calls to a key person at a bank, and I don't want to talk too much about that because they have...
we don't want to be naming names.
Yeah.
That's really not what this show's for.
It's more about being able to help people, you know, on that one-to-one basis when we can. And those are good, but we're a very small crew of people who have been dedicated to trying to stop these foreclosures. And so we're also really looking at the more wholesale approaches in how we can nip this in the bud.
One of the nice things about a foreclosure...
This is CJ Holmes speaking.
Hi. One of the nice things about a foreclosure prevention zone is that it would raise awareness and recognize that everybody that's losing their home, they are in grief. They are grieving the loss of their home, they're angry, they don't know where to turn, they don't have any tools and there's no solutions.
And they
But
might feel ashamed about it too.
oh, a lot of them do, and they don't even want to tell you.
Mhm.
In fact, a lot of people don't even try to sell short. They just pack up and move and let the house go to foreclosure and try to forget about it. And I don't blame them. They're taking the personal embarrassment, which is actually, they're sad, I'm mad, because their loss is not only their loss, it's my loss. Their loss in their home is ruining my values.
Mhm.
And that's how everybody in this country should be looking at it.
Yep.
That everybody else that's losing, and it's not their fault, because the values have plummeted. So they're walking, but that means I'm next. You know, we're all on the slide going down, some are falling off. Now, you'll read on the net, and I've gotten people emailing lots of stuff now, and yes, here, there's people that stand up, that there's some daughter that writes this moving letter, some B of A CEO says, oh, stop that foreclosure, and we'll give you a loan mod. Of course, they don't have one yet. And of course, I'm cynical enough to say, yeah, right, it's another bait and take. They bait you with the loan mod, oh yeah, here, look, we'll do this, and right in the middle of that, they start a foreclosure process, notice a default, and then, you know, in 4 months or so, they take it. So they bait and take, and the reason they want you to apply for a loan mod is the government has said every time somebody
That's an interesting
applies,
concept.
we'll pay you $1,000. So people get denied, so then they reapply, so then the bank gets another $1,000, the owner gets nothing, except he ends up getting the property sold in foreclosure.
And you've described, and not only you, but many publications in this area of economics and banking and real estate have concurred on this, that it's a scam, that a bank only has to invite a potential borrower
Listen.
to do the refinance, but then somehow they're not following through on making sure that that is refinanced.
For the last 6 months, B of A, we have a countrywide loan, and B of A has sent us one single sheet of paper in a FedEx envelope. That FedEx guy drives up, tosses it on the porch, and it's one sheet, and it says, apply for a loan mod. That's really good for you. And so my husband calls and says, okay, tell me your rates. Oh, we can't do that. They just want you to apply. We did apply. We tried November 2010. And at that point, by the end of December, the news came out that B of A had actually modified 98 loans out of the hundreds of thousands that had applied.
Oh my
And of course, they turned us down because they'll find a reason. They have a list of reasons to say no.
Mhm.
It's a scam and a sham.
And so instead, people get foreclosed.
Well, they try loan mod, and so they think that they're going to get something, but they're not going to get principal reduction. They may even get a lower interest rate, or they may have all those payments put at the back end. But what they need, like Tiffany has said, they need several $100,000 off the principal. They need it
Right.
reset to market to keep the house, and they won't do that.
And one point that you've made, CJ, in the previous hour, is that the bank's going to do it anyway, because once they foreclosed, it goes on the market at its
Exactly.
market price,
Exactly.
at the interest rate that is the market interest rate right now. So why not let the person who's living in the house do that?
Exactly. And I have people ask me that, and I'm saying, I don't know. We need to make them.
Yes.
This is
There-
insane.
There is money made on foreclosures, though. from
Oh
what I
yeah,
understand.
oh yeah. And you can look at, well, places on the website. And basically, the summary is they're making 30 to 50,000 per foreclosure because they're the middleman.
They're
Now
the-
remember,
yeah.
this is not
They're
the
just an
bank's
agent.
money. They are servicers of these toxic notes. They didn't write them, but they're getting paid to service. And it's just like when a property management company manages a loan, they get a penalty if the person defaults or is late.
Mhm.
Those penalty fees accrue to the manager, the property manager, not to the owner. And so the manager is accruing, banks are the managers, they're accruing these penalty fees. Then of course, you gotta understand that that person that stands at the auction steps and reads off, that actually goes through that foreclosure process, that person is part of a company that is wholly owned by the banks.
Mhm.
It's a wholly owned bank subsidiary, Recon Trust. wholly owned bank subsidiary by B of A. They own they call them field assets. They have set up wholly owned subsidiaries with contractors in it to run around and do, mow 200 lawns a day. I've talked to the poor guys that are doing it, they're paid pennies, but they have a job. And they run from Sacramento to Sonoma and Fresno. They're all over the country just mowing the lawns as fast as possible, trying to keep these houses looking decent. Then the banks have wholly owned subsidiaries. We call them asset managers. They're the ones that actually are master listing agents. They don't know a clue about how to sell a property, but they, in their infinite wisdom, decide who they're going to pick to list the property on the market. And if that person who lists the property doesn't do exactly what they say, they actually say to them, well, to the brokers, they say to the brokers, well, if you're not going to do what I tell you, I'm going to just take the listing and give it to somebody else. And so, some of these people are...
Doesn't sound like much of a contract.
They're paid like $10 an hour. So they are now in control of our real estate market. So the banks own the asset manager companies. They own the appraisal management companies, now that we have to have those. And so now appraisers are paid $125 for an appraisal that costs the consumer $500. Banks net the spread. So many of the long-time appraisers, they've been pushed out of business because they can't survive anymore. Turnaround time in 24 hours, it's a mess. It's a mess.
And on that, I will say two things. You are listening to Shiftshapers, Pole Reversal Radio here on KBBF 89.1 FM. And who you just have been listening to describe the situation as she sees it is C.J. Holmes. She is a real estate broker in Sonoma County, in Santa Rosa, who has taken on bringing this issue to people's consciousness. And the opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests and the commentators, not necessarily those of KBBF FM or the Bilingual Broadcasting Foundation. We're going to hear a little bit about casas de cartón, houses of cardboard.
En las casas de cartón.
Yes, that is Francisco Herrera singing Casas de Cartón, which is houses of cardboard, and how far away hope is for the people who live that way. And unfortunately, there are people living that way. And there are people being thrown out of their homes, and that is one of the things that that's what we're having this special edition of Shiftshapers for. This show is a result of many requests from the community listening to us, and we are here at KBBF FM 89.1. We are the voice of the community, la voz de tu comunidad, and that's what we're doing here. I have with me, I'm your host, Daniel Kervine, and I have with me Tiffany Renee, who's Vice Mayor of Petaluma, the first Latina elected to the Petaluma City Council, elected there 3 years ago. And I have with me also C.J. Holmes, who is a real estate broker, very knowledgeable about the ins and outs of how real estate works, and is dedicated to cracking this through and empowering people in cracking through this on a grassroots level right up to the top levels of government, so that we route this, we turn this around, this menace of foreclosures. So I'm going to ask you, Tiffany Renee, about a little of the big picture here, and a little bit about one of the things you mentioned during the break was if people actually looked at their mortgage notices, if they actually looked at the bill that they get, they'd be really surprised at what's really going on behind it. Can you tell me a little more about that?
Yeah, so the monthly statement that comes where you pay your mortgage, if you're able to, if you have a home and you're able to pay a mortgage, the notice at the top is usually the person or the bank that you originally bought your loan with when you bought your house. And what you don't see are all of the other potential owners and existing owners that have cut up, as CJ was describing earlier, cut up that mortgage and sold it off to many different investment pools. And wouldn't it be amazing if we had the ability to see who all of those investment pools are that own our mortgages? I think it would be a wake-up for America.
It's weird we're not allowed to.
It's disturbing to know, and to even be able to find out who owns your loan is a very difficult process. Trying to find out if my loan was owned by Freddie or Fannie, because all of these new assistance programs that are coming forward that Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae are providing to loans that are owned by them. Very difficult. It's hard to find out. They have websites that will tell you if your loan is owned by them or not, but to really find out who owns your loan is a near impossibility. So that would be, I think, a big wake-up call for people to be able to understand what's really happened with their loans, and how when they go to try to refinance or get a modification, why it is so difficult. If they saw those owners, they would understand why it takes 14 or 15 months to be able to try to get a modification.
Or that you don't get it.
Or that you don't.
Right, you don't get it.
So why aren't they telling us? Why aren't we being told? Why are we in bizarro world with this?
It's the shadow banking system that has been discussed earlier, and being able to sever those ties that exist. Really, it's looking at the history of this with the rescinding of Glass-Steagall, and
that was a law. Could I drop
absolutely
this in? That the Glass-Steagall Act was a law that was passed as part of the New Deal in the 1930s. That in order to prevent another Great Depression, nice try. It might have even worked. It was a law that forbid banks from becoming investment houses, essentially. That they were there to take your money in savings and handle your checking, but they were not supposed to be out on Wall Street gunslinging with a bunch of risky investments.
Exactly. And so looking at those kinds of issues where the investment pools are able to split all of these mortgages up and sell them to investors throughout the world. Being able to sever those ties where banks are able to do that, I think, is one of the ways that we can look at being able to stop the foreclosures and
so return the Glass-Steagall regulations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so the new loans that are sold as people are coming into the market and buying homes, those types of processes, if we can cease those processes, then banks can continue to own the loans that they originally sold.
So are you saying that the things that were done that got us into this situation are still legal and they're still able to do this?
It's still happening. So
Yes.
yeah.
This is insane. They already recognize it's not legal, and they're still allowed to do it. And they're still foreclosing, and all the foreclosures are illegal, and they're still doing it. Now, what she's talking about is what the credit unions do. And we term it a portfolio loan. The credit unions do not, most of their loans, they do not wholesale.
Yeah.
This is the market that the buyers, the borrowers, and property owners don't understand or see. They don't hear much about it. And now you can see
That's
why.
Why it's called a shadow.
Now you can
Shadow
see
banking
why.
system.
We don't want you to know we wholesale that paper and sell it to somebody else and then let them do whatever with it. The credit unions will make a loan to a homeowner, and they will hold that in their portfolio. That means that they lent their money to the homeowner, and the homeowner makes the payments back to the credit union. And the credit union gets the payments back. I mean, it's what most people think has been happening.
Right.
But the big banks, particularly the mortgage finance companies that really started this, think Countrywide, think New Century, these were the entities that were operating without regulation and created this fraudulent stuff. Those loans, they didn't hold those. They're not gonna wait for you to pay them back in 30 years, are you kidding? They wanted to sell those.
Yeah.
They wanted to get the money back because they made huge fees. Every time they churned the money, they made more fees.
At the time that it was being done wholesale, and at the time it was being done to the trillions of dollars, it was at a time when it looked like real estate in the United States particularly was going to keep escalating in value. And that was the key to the whole thing, right? I mean, you could even be selling bad loans, and at least the value of whatever that bad loan was purchasing was going to go up.
It gave that bubble. And the reason prices bubbled at all was because anybody could walk into any lender and for $1,500 a month could borrow $600,000, $700,000, $800,000. It was completely unrelated.
With cash in the pocket even.
Yeah, they could take cash back out. I mean, they were insane. So of course, the competition for the houses, and everybody wants to live in a nice house. And so they would look at these houses going, whoa, we can afford that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, boom, they would buy these. And so then more and more competition. That's why Sonoma County's median went up to 620,000. Median's now 320.
Yeah, and these loans that we were discussing what subprime loans are, the loans to people who were below the prime borrower, would get mixed in. They were risky loans, mixed in with more prime loans and sold as really quality investment vehicles on Wall Street. So the bad ones would get mixed in with the good ones in bundles, and that was so that's what those you call them.
And subprime were for people with poorer credit, less credit. And a lot of people had good credit, but they were shifted into subprime loans because the loan officer made so much more money.
Oh,
The
interest rates were higher.
No,
Yeah, and fees.
the kickback from the lenders was bigger.
Wow.
And so they would make more money. Listen, so many borrowers have come to me crying, saying, they had a 3-year prepay penalty, and I told that loan officer I didn't want a prepay penalty. The trouble is, the loan officer got paid another half point on the loan to put a prepay penalty on it. So he would do that, and then never show up at signing. Are you kidding me? And so these people would get stuck at escrow, signing papers. If they didn't sign, they didn't get the house. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah, yeah. Well, here we are now, where we've had 20,000, I'm going to look at the figures in Sonoma County. From 2008 to 2012, there have been over 20,000 foreclosures with a home value loss of over $8.4 billion. There have been $200 million in tax revenues lost due to the housing crisis. So my next question is for Tiffany Renee, who is Vice Mayor of Petaluma, on the City Council of Petaluma, and CJ Holmes, who is a real estate broker and investor, who have been advocating a foreclosure-free zone and a couple of other grassroots efforts. What would these accomplish, and how would you see them working? You want to start?
Sure. So one of the things our city council did last month was to reach out to Kamala Harris, Attorney General Kamala Harris, and
Right. This is the California Attorney General.
yes, wanting to look at stopping the evictions so that those houses that are being foreclosed upon and the evictions that are occurring that may be fraudulent, we can keep those people in their homes, and she has an ability of doing that by having a stay on evictions. She can work with either the governor's office, the state legislatures, or the courts to enact a stay. If a stay occurs, then our local sheriffs in each of the counties in California would not be forced by the courts to evict people. And currently, they have to follow the law. When we have evictions, court-ordered evictions, they have to follow through on those. And there are other states where sheriffs are able to have more flexibility in that, and some sheriffs are not evicting people. But in California, because of our state laws, they have to follow the law, and when a court order comes down, they have to abide by that. So working with her to not settle, I mean, the fact that she is refusing to settle at this point is huge for California. It's a big opportunity for all of the homeowners, and I believe the past homeowners as well, people who have lost their homes.
You know, the center doesn't hold if you don't have any rule of law. I mean, if the sheriff is being sent to evict people on an illegal foreclosure, something is askew. So Kamala Harris, Attorney General of California, now this is something she's being requested to do this, or she's actually considering this?
The city council requested this of her, okay, along with some other issues that we are finding to be key in all of this. So So we've asked her to do that. We would like to be able to meet with her and to discuss what local governments are facing, the challenges that local governments are facing. I want to praise her for standing up to this national settlement issue and continuing to do the investigations. It's really key. And we would like to do some of those investigations locally with our county recorder. I started a discussion with her about this and being able to show counties where this MERS process is happening, the fines or the fees that the loans that are being moved around.
Yes.
That are not being recorded properly.
Yeah.
The counties are losing
It's going
out.
into some sort of electronic database that's run by a profit-making company. It's called MERS, for
MERS.
short, MERS, Mortgage Electronic
Registration system.
System. Okay. And that is kind of weird how that thing works.
And what happens is that the counties get shorted on those fees because it's not, the loans are not being, the titles are not being recorded individually. And so counties are losing out lots of money, and the last I checked, our Sonoma County is facing huge debts.
Well, you know, one of the people at the, there was a pretty well-attended presentation about this at the Arlene Francis Center last week, and one of the people who spoke there was an attorney named Colin Davis.
Not an attorney.
He's not an attorney?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But he's learning the law.
He's learning the law. Okay, my apologies. And one of the things, though, that he mentioned was that, good thing for him to be learning the law, yes, that he can be an attorney, be referred to that way. But I want to definitely give him some kudos for a little factoid he threw out, which is that in New York, there was a judge, one of the higher-up judges in the system, looked at the foreclosures that were occurring and looked at the paperwork that came with them and said, this isn't, you're going to have to start proving that, and that's a different system than in California, but he said you're going to have to start proving that you have all your paperwork in alignment and under penalty of perjury before you can execute this. So could that be done in the North Bay area or in California?
I think that that's something that the county supervisors could look at, as well as potentially cities as well, that when those titles are signed, that additional piece of paper is added to ensure that nothing fraudulent is happening.
An affidavit with penalties.
Yes.
So if they lie on that, they lose their license, law
Yeah.
license, and even could go to prison. That works for me.
Yes, and that would, and on the city council there. So I want to let people know that we will be posting this on our Blog Talk Radio site, so that so we will be sharing it to the general public with this interview, and there are other interviews on that site as well. It's Blog Talk. It's www.blogtalkradio, blogtalkradio.com. So when you get there, look for Shiftshapers, and that is spelled Shiftshapers, Shiftshapers, all one word. And just so that this is another example that KBBF is listening to the voice of our community, and you can send us an email if you like this show and want to hear more. You can email to us at shiftshapers@gmail.com. So how can people contact you, Tiffany Renee?
My direct phone number is 707-235-8762, and my email is tiff, T-I-F-F, at tiffanyrenee, TIFFANYRENEE.com, and I'm happy to work with people locally, regionally on these issues.
Excellent. And CJ Holmes, website?
Occupy-our-homes.info, and email is occupy@cjholmes.com.
Thank you both for joining us here on Shiftshapers Pole Reversal Radio. I'm your host, Daniel Kerbine. Working the board here, our engineer is Evelina Molina. Thank you everybody for listening, and thank you KBBF for this wonderful studio to get this word out.